And I think typically when we think of life coaches, it's you spend time with me and your money is going to buy knowledge from me that you're going to then implement in your life. And I can't explain how anti that I am. I don't know anything new, different. I don't have any special powers or special sauce or anything. I don't have any of that. What I do have is the ability to have the time and the schooling and the credentialing and the background to help you solve and work through problems that work best for you. I just help partner with you to get you there. We think about these small little things that we think that we can do, but we actually haven't had a partner to help us game plan on how we're going to do it. What does it look like strategically? What are our roadblocks? How can we get there? Because at the end of those 10 weeks, we might not even remember or think about how we got to the end of those 10 weeks. But then when we look back and see all those notes that we took and see how we've hit every single goal for ourselves that we set in those pre-meetings, it's the idea that like if micro changes happen so much, we don't even notice that they're happening. And then we look back and we're like, oh my God, I've taken hundreds and hundreds and if not thousands of steps forward.
Welcome back to the Sold on Jet podcast. I'm your host, Bill Caffaretta. And we did take a couple weeks off here at the end of the school year to finish that strong and do a couple things around town, but we're back and really excited about this week's guest, which is Cody Gould. He's a personal development coach here in the Dripping Springs area, and you can find him on social at cody.gould or at his website, codygould.com. And on today's episode, we're going to dive deep into the world of personal development coaching, what it offers, and break down some of the misconceptions about the coach-client relationship. And what's important to learn about Cody is that he became the coach that he needed at a young age because that person just simply didn't exist. And that's why he now focuses on the younger generation of future leaders. So whether you're a high school student, the parent of a high school student, or a college student, the parent of a college student, or a young professional in management for the first time, and you might feel a little bit lost and need a little direction, he's the guy that can help you grow as a person and fail forward into the person that you're meant to be. So sit back, listen in. We go deep. We talk a lot about different issues facing our younger generation today, and we really think that this is something that we can help, and it's a void that's been there. So listen in, follow Cody on social, and we would love for you to go into the comments or and leave a review and let us know what you think of this episode. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast, your ultimate destination for all things Dripping Springs. I am your host, Bill Caffaretta, and we are here to celebrate what makes this town the best place to live in the Texas Hill Country. It's amazing people. Join us as we sit down with local residents and business owners to hear their stories, learn why they love this community, and are proud to call it home. We will be spotlighting their businesses, find out why they choose to serve the people of Dripping Springs, and dive into the local events that bring our community together. Our finger is always on the pulse, and we will be keeping you informed about how our rapid growth and development is impacting our schools, resources, and the local real estate market. Whether you're a lifelong resident or you have just discovered Dripping Springs, you will soon know why we are all sold on drip. Thanks for joining and enjoy this episode.
I'm really excited for this week's guest. It's somebody who I've been wanting to interview for a long time, who's actually a personal mentor to me, very good friend, and somebody I can't wait for you to meet. It's Cody Gould, who's a personal development coach here in the Austin area and Dripping Springs with Cody Gould Coaching and Consulting, and I cannot wait for you to meet him. How you doing, Cody?
Good, man. Good. How are you? I'm going to call you Cap all day just because that's how we talk to each other. I hope that's okay. Okay.
We're going to keep this as informal as possible. So
I love it. Yeah.
Just excited to finally have you on the podcast. Want our listeners to get to know you and see how you can help them and how you can help some young people out here.
I couldn't be more happy to be here, man. I'm super excited.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what kind of makes you tick?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I guess I'll start with our relationship. So, I ended up coming to Texas for my graduate degree. I went to Texas State for my degree in interpersonal communication, training and development, which to most listeners probably sounds like, just a made up degree. It isn't, I promise. But After graduating college in Buffalo, New York, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I took a leap of faith to go to Texas State University, which at the time had the best program in the nation for interpersonal communication. I somehow got in. I got a teaching position. I was like, "Oh, this is great." I played lacrosse in college. That's actually how I ended up meeting UCAF. So I started coaching for Dripping Springs youth lacrosse originally about 6 years ago. I think that's right. 7 years ago. And then I moved up to the varsity team, coached the varsity team for 6 years. And now I'm going to be off doing my own thing. Some coaching, consulting young professionals, young athletes, anywhere really between the 15 and 30-year age is what I'm kind of honing in on, helping. It's a particularly underserved group of people that really need some help, some guidance. And the world's changing and kind of getting crazy out there. So I want to do the best I possibly can to bring that off the field coaching, the coaching that I really honed in lacrosse, mixed in with my master's degree and also some additional credentials that I got in regards to coaching, and kind of just bring that to the masses of the kids in the Austin area. I'm going to use kids lightly because 15 to 30 is a pretty broad range. But as somebody who was and is sort of in that range, people expect us to know everything off the internet or to have connections through mentors that can just give their time. And that's just not the way the world works anymore. So I want to really kind of be a strategic partner with these young adults that really need professional assistance and professional help in regards to the coaching world.
So there's two aspects there that I hear. One is you're honing in on a group that hasn't really had this opportunity in the past, because most coaches are wanting to work with established professionals, somebody who can pay a lot of money to see that coach at a high level, once a week, whatever it might be, and wants that C-level executive who already has all the experience. And frankly, a lot of kids are lost, whether they're coming out of high school, coming out of college, or in a, entry-level management position. So I love that you're doing that. I love that you're helping young people. I know that that's a big passion of yours. And, to me, what I know of you, you're just being the person you wish you had at 20 and 25.
I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. That's spot on. I think that that's actually something I want to add too. That's mixed in with, I want to provide the coaching, the professional kind of personal leadership, personal development help that I know that I needed. And kind of, I guess, case in point with that is after I graduated, I think we alluded to this a little bit, but after I graduated, I did recruiting. I worked for a marketing company. I did commercial real estate for a while. I ran human resources for a small business. I did change management. I did training and development. And in that time frame of the past 6-7 years, been laid off 3 times in 2.5 years. And then, what? I was like, I have an urge and desire to really provide this coaching help. And there was no better time than the last time that I got laid off, just because the company ran out of money. It's no kind of harm, no foul on my part or the company's part. It's just the way that the world worked. And now I just couldn't be happier giving this kind of help as much as I possibly can to the people that, like you said, really, really have been underserved in that regard.
So you're in that special niche of younger people, but today, in like today's world, it just seems like everybody's a coach. Everybody you talk to is a coach of some sort, whether it's business, personal development, something along those lines. And a big term that we hear lately is and it's a big buzzword on social media is life coach. Life coach, right? So what does that mean? Like, exactly, what is a life coach? Are you a life coach, or is it personal development, and what's the difference?
Yeah. So there is a lot here to talk about. I'm happy that you brought it up, because I think there's a lot of misconception. Coaching, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the prefix is. It could be personal development. It could be executive coaching. It could be life coaching. It could be insert a prefix and the type of coaching. At the end of the day, it's all the same. You have 2 different types of coaches that work from the mindset of, I have knowledge that you need or you want, so you're going to pay me for that knowledge. Or you have coaches that work from a perspective of, we are going to partner and work together to help solve the problems in your life in the best possible manner that fits you. And that does not equal a curriculum or a sort of knowledge purchase like the first one. And I think typically when we think of life coaches, we think of the first one. It's, you spend time with me and your money is going to buy knowledge from me that you're going to then implement in your life. And I can't explain how anti that I am. I don't know anything new, different. I don't have any special powers or special sauce or anything. I don't have any of that. What I do have is the ability to have the time and the schooling and the credentialing and the background to help you solve and work through problems that work best for you. I just help partner with you to get you there. And that, I think that is kind of the big misconception with life coaching, because in life coaching, it's just, it can sometimes feel a little bit intangible. It's like, what are we getting from life coaching? And I wish I could use a different words beside coach, because there's so many different kind of conceptualizations that people have when you explain that you are a coach. I almost wish that I could say, like, I'm a partner problem solver. That's what I am. At the end of the day, I want to partner with you to help create the best possible path for you to move forward that works best for you.
Well, someone who's going to bring you into their circle to be their coach or their mentor or their partner is somebody who's looking for results, right? They want to be better, a better student, a better employee, a better manager, a better friend, a better husband, whatever it might be. But a big piece of that, and what I've known, because I have a coach, and I recommend everybody to have a coach and a therapist, honestly. So when looking at that, I mean, to me, you can't get success. You can't push yourself forward to be a better anything without working on yourself first. And you have to get the personal issues out of the way, because 9 times out of 10, you're holding yourself back. So in those situations, I mean, what are some of the things that you do differently to get that person in front of you to work on themselves so they can unlock their potential in whatever it is they're trying to do?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. It's finding the root of the problem. Every single time we're going to spend, usually, ideally, the amount of time that I spend with the minimum amount of time that I spend with a client is 10 weeks. And that is check-ins every week with conversations potentially in between, whether that be emails, text messages, phone calls, what have you, whatever works best for that client. That's what we're going to do. At the beginning, I'll have probably 1 to 4 sessions, especially if it's with somebody who's younger than 18, so their parents are going to be involved in the conversation. We're going to have 1 to 4 sessions before we even begin. It's, hey, what are you trying to get out of this? From the parent's perspective, what would you like to see? Like, what are we really going for here? Have we really thought about that? Is it trying to identify better study habits? Is it trying to identify how my child can no longer be, like, the feeling of loneliness is lifted off them a little bit? Is it, I want to be more outgoing? And then from there, you have to conceptualize what success looks like really visually see it. So study habits, for example, where are we now? And what is one study habit we would like to implement into our working lives by the end of our 10 weeks? Are you doing that consistently? What are our roadblocks from not doing that consistently? Same with the loneliness. What is our definition of loneliness right now? How do we accept that? And then implement one thing, because you can't implement a bunch of stuff. It's one small thing. Is it, I want to go for a walk, right? I want to go for, I want to have a random conversation with one person at a coffee shop 1 day a week. And that would make me feel like I can step outside of my shell. And we realize that we think about these small little things that we think that we can do, but we actually haven't had a partner to help us game plan on how we're going to do it. What does it look like strategically? What are our roadblocks? How can we get there? So it's really working both with the client and the potential family to come together to identify what we're looking for and then be able to create a checklist to say, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that, to physically show progress. Because at the end of those 10 weeks, we might not even remember or think about how we got to the end of those 10 weeks. But then when we look back and see all those notes that we took and see how we've hit every single goal for ourselves that we set in those pre-meetings, and we realize that we've made so much more kind of leaps and bounds and progression than we thought that we were going to, than compared to what we thought that we actually did at the end, right? It's the idea that, like, if micro changes happen so much, we don't even notice that they're happening. And then we look back and we're like, oh my God, I've taken hundreds and hundreds and if not thousands of steps forward, but they don't feel like big steps because they're all small.
That's like that airplane analogy, right? If you're 1 degree off at takeoff, you're 60 miles away from your target by the time you get there.
Completely. Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you in where you're breaking this down, and I really hear that when you have that coffee shop analogy of having that one conversation with a stranger at a coffee shop, is if you're one of these people who has to make a decision, right? And this is, I use that loosely, it's anybody. And you're in this situation where you need to choose your heart, because not having those conversations and being somebody who's pent up and afraid to have those conversations, that's hard. Being that person who has to step out and then have that one conversation a week, that's also hard. But which one moves you forward? They're both hard. You just got to choose your heart.
But I think we know this, being lacrosse coaches, over the years, the choosing the hard or choosing the difficulty or the hard thing to do and implementing it into our daily life, I think we've seen kind of the youth being able to do that a lot easier, probably 6 to 10 years before now, because of social anxiety. And granted, I'm not a mental health professional. I'll be the first one to say that. I am not. I love working with therapists in conjunction. Coaching is accepting the now and moving forward, where therapy is dissecting and diagnosing the past to understand how we got to where we are. It's the best way of kind of explaining what coaching is. But yeah, like choosing the heart, like you said, I think is so important, because, for example, I have a client. He actually is a former lacrosse player for Dripping Springs, and smart as can be, unbelievably smart. Graduating from his honors program, top of his class, years early, literally years early from his program. And we have conversations about how we're going to approach sending an email to somebody, at a private equity company he would like to intern with. But before we can get there, it's, have you even had a conversation with somebody in your friend group that is of a slightly deeper context than just, hey man, what's up? How like, did you do the homework today? Because we know that if we try to go send that private equity email first and foremost, we don't know we don't know how to steer the ship once we're in that conversation, because we have to build those social skills and we have to build that ability to be able to kind of be in a really unsecure pathway. Compared to if we were to practice with our friend groups, get that courage, get that kind of energy to be able to gear up for that conversation.
So what you're saying here is that communication is a skill.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing.
It's the number one most underpracticed skill in the world. And the reason is, I'm happy that you asked this or said that. So as a master of communication, which is, not a stretch because it's literally what I am. There is a realization that interpersonal communication is the number one most practiced and underpracticed skill that we have as human beings. And the question is why? Why does that happen? And it's because of the idea that as humans, we cannot not communicate. Meaning, as soon as we are born, we typically cry. That is communicating that we are alive and that we need air, or we need kind of sustenance or help, or we need something. If we're not crying, we also need help. And that's communicating to the doctors and our parents that we also need assistance. If we're sleeping, that's a great kind of potential. Someone tries to get a gotcha saying, well, if you're sleeping, you're not communicating. If you're sleeping, you're communicating that you're sleeping. right? People don't even think about that. And it's the idea that communication is so under practice because we don't put energy to it typically. But if we do, we get leaps and bounds on that return on investment because it's the most practiced thing that we do naturally all the time. But if we gear ourselves up to understand how we can approach different conversations in the best possible way, how can we identify, how to ask questions appropriately? That is a skill within itself as well. It's just communication as a whole has been chopped down to say sales or marketing or, romantic conversations. But as a whole,
I'll fight you on that and
Mhm.
say that communication has been chopped down to 140 characters or less.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me
Because
started. Yeah.
social media, as great as it is and as big of a tool as it is and as wonderful as we can make it, has destroyed communication
Mhm.
in our society because everything is done visually, right? Through photos and emojis or just short text. And so much of that communication, not that it's a bad thing. I mean, big on social media. I think it's fantastic, but you just lose that ability to actually communicate with somebody face to face, one on one, and have a conversation. We don't do it. I mean, I am as guilty of this as possible. And with my job, like I answer the phone. I love having conversations, but like majority of people, your phone rings, and what do? Let it go to
Yeah.
voicemail and text them, hey, what's up?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
it's just ingrained in us right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that mixed with the ability for us to be able to be on our phone 24/7, mixed with the idea that now we can spend the majority of our time just ingesting information. And ingesting, I mean, I'm just sitting here on my phone rotting away, right? That's the terminology my parents used to tell me about playing Xbox growing up or whatever. It was like, oh, you're gonna rot your brain. Well, now it's so part of our culture that that time that we are on our screens or not using a screen to do something like this podcast, but on our screens or just consuming information is time that we are not actually practicing on interpersonal interaction
Well,
and
you told me
interpersonal
this
communication.
years ago, and you asked me this question, and it kind of changed my entire perspective: is are you a consumer or are you a creator? And which one do
Mhm.
you want to be?
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
want to create, but you're just consuming? And there's a backside to that because you can't be a good creator without consuming.
Mhm.
But it's a two-way street and it's a two-way communication street. And I just feel that what you're helping a lot of young people with today is flexing that muscle, right? And and
Mhm.
and creating, it's like going to the gym. Like you don't get bigger and stronger without putting in the work. And communication is the same way. And when we
Yes.
don't have the ability to communicate on our own because we haven't had those conversations, and maybe it's childhood traumas, maybe it's
Mhm.
lack of trust in adults for some reason, or maybe it's just the fact of just trying to get by and get through. You don't always
Mhm.
have that, but to have somebody in your position who can help with that is really, really beneficial to somebody. So now we get a really good idea of who that is and who you are and what you're doing. But
Mhm.
who's the person you work with? I mean, we've talked kind of a wide range. Literally have 15 to 30, but
Mhm.
what do we? You got high school students, you have entry level executive type management.
Yeah.
So who is the person you work with? Who can you help the most, and who can we have reach out to you that needs some of this guidance?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start with kind of the current landscape of who I work with right now, and then we can talk about ideal. So current landscape, I work with a couple of high school students, really just honing in on understanding themselves better. It might be kind of some of those topics we talked about, whether it be understanding what's making them lonely or kind of creating some goals for themselves or identifying better study habits or just kind of clearing a path so that they can thrive through ways that feel great for them, right? Because sometimes I feel like high school can put us in boxes so early to say, oh, you're a STEM student, or you're an English student, or you're just going to be a PE kid. Like, how can we kind of create a future that is fruitful for them at a really young age in a way that fits within those confines of high school? So we're kind of partnering and working with them and the family to kind of come together to co-create that future. I love working with those with those clients. It's a full effort between myself, the client who is probably around that 15 to 17, 18 year range, and the family, which I just absolutely love. From there, the people who are in college, I also really I think that they're a pretty undervalued, or not undervalued, but pretty under tapped community that needs this assistance. When people go to college, you are usually just dropped off, your parents drop you off, and then it's up to you to identify how to make it work. Whether that be you going to your guidance counselor office, or the kind of the office at school, or going to an athletic coach if you are playing sports in college, or going to a teacher asking for advice. There's no one there that really holistically is dedicated to giving you time to help you with both academics, your social life, and your family life all in one, or sports, if that's something else that we kind of throw into the mix. No one's really holistically looking at all that. And I want to partner with those people to really help create a more fulfilling college experience, because I feel like I would have really thrived if that was given to me. Then the post-college experience, now kind of integrating into the real world. I also find that there's very little assistance there. Whether you get your internship and then you get that job right after college, or you get your internship and then you realize that you've graduated and you still don't have a job, so you go back to work at your local Starbucks, coffee shop, or whatever. It's like, who is partnering with those people that feel like they have more to give?
You have a bunch of jobs and you get laid off 3 times.
Yeah, seriously, exactly. And then from a little bit of a step above that, I do work with some, in particular, some commercial real estate guys that are growing out their teams. I love working in the real estate market, because just the way that real estate works, and specifically when we talk about kind of creating teams of real estate, everyone's 1099, right? But the way that you have to grow in real estate is by growing a team. And so when we talk about growing teams and development, that's manager development. So now we're talking about something that's similar, but a little bit different. So sometimes these first-time managers, they don't know how to approach conversations. They don't know how to create good kind of guidelines for how to move forward, how to create cohesive teams and trustworthy actual servant leadership. They don't know how to create that. And especially because they're in 1099, they're not in a W-2, there's no training and development program. And so working with those clients is really fruitful for me, because I get to see their success, quote unquote, in real time, from the amount of deals that they can kind of flow in and flow down to their teams. And I love seeing that too. So if anyone fits within those categories, we would love to talk with them.
Well, that leadership or lack thereof is part of the issue. And from the way I look at this, and from what you're saying, is if you're somebody you're a commercial realtor or whatever it is you do, and you're an adult and you're in this position of power, this position of management, where you haven't had somebody helping you along the way when you were in college or in high school or fresh out of college, if you can get into that early and work with somebody who's going to help partner with them, like you are, and create confidence, leadership skills, then it's only going to help you with it later in life. So I look at it like, the earlier somebody can get in touch with somebody like you to help them, the better off they're going to be as they climb up and get out of college. And I look at college too. Like I was a wreck in college. I had really strict parents in high school. I got to college, went crazy, like didn't have any sort of structure or anything, and wasn't even a decent member of society until I was like 27, because that's just, I didn't have the guidance and the structure. Structure is completely overrated.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, structure is completely undervalued. And you don't see that because you're not in it, but we crave structure as humans.
Oh yeah. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah. There's, like I said, some of the commercial real estate clients that I have are the ones that are more particularly craving structure more than anything. I think that sometimes if we go back into high school and in college, structure's already given to us. We go to school, we know exactly what classes we have to do, we know exactly what homework we have to do, we know exactly what's expected of us. And that's where we're kind of we're toting the line on how do I deviate from the structure? Where can I throw in my creativity and my uniqueness in both of those kind of instances? Then we get to the real world and we're like, oh my God, I have no structure because it was given to us so much beforehand. And so
Eat
now
ice
we
cream
have
for
to,
dinner.
exactly. Now you have to create that structure on your own. But the thing is, my structure, and I know this because I know you, my structure is not going to work for you. Your structure is not going to work for me. Who helped us understand our structures? No one. So it took us until we were 27, 28, 29, 30 years old to identify those structures because we had to
Right.
put that hard work in. But if I had a partner come and help me at 20, 21 years old to
Game changer.
identify, you know what, hey, like I have Crohn's disease, right? I appreciate my gut health. If someone said, Cody, if you didn't, drink all throughout college, your gut would be that much better, and not judge me, but just give me the information and also kind of show me some facts and partner with me on how to create a little bit of a healthier lifestyle. I'm sure my gut would be so thankful for that. But that didn't happen. And I had to learn that later in life. Right.
And there's something to be said about that too, right? Because the reason you are so good at what you do is because you failed yourself forward in these moments by not having somebody. And that's what makes the best coaches, is the people that have been through these trials and tribulations, and the people who have had to go through this and learn on their own. And you've done that, and you're here. And I've seen you in action with athletes that we coach. I've seen you with friends of ours. Frankly, just you and I talking through, and I credit you with a lot of my success and a lot of my career because of conversations that we've had on car rides back and forth to Dallas and just hanging out and shooting the shit. But that's what makes you successful, is the fact that you've had those opportunities to fail and learn from them.
Yeah.
Failure is good.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Failure is important. And when it comes to, you're hitting the nail on the head with something I wanted to talk about. And we didn't even talk about this beforehand, so this is amazing. It comes down to, we all screw up at every point in time. I'm never going to do anything perfectly. You're never going to do anything perfectly. But because we screw up, we are also the first ones to beat ourselves up. And having the skill to accept and let things go is extremely hard if we don't practice it. But the easiest way to do that is to partner with somebody to help us move forward. Granted, a lot of us have therapists. I've had therapists for the past 2 years. I've had a therapist for the past 2 years, and it's absolutely changed my life. I've also had coaches, and I work with coaches on a regular basis to help me, because as much as I can accept the current now with my therapist and accept the past on how I got to where I am, I still feel like I'm floating and have no idea where to go, what to do. It's just like, wow, okay, I'm very self-actualized right now, but now where do I start swimming? I'm in the middle of the ocean. How do we create a game plan? And I love saying this too, and I think this goes very much in line with what you're saying earlier, is we're in the day and age of the internet. We can pull out our phones and identify absolutely everything. I can look up, 5 best ways to set goals. We have access to all this information. This is why coaching, and predominantly life coaching, gets a bad rap, because I can go online and find every single piece of information I could ever want in my entire life. That's not our problem. Our problem is implementation of that knowledge. And that's where partnership comes in.
It's not implementation of the knowledge. It's the self-awareness.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's, can you lead a horse to water? Yeah. But can you make him drink? No. So
well, you have to make sure he's thirsty first.
You have to make sure he's thirsty first. So can you go on the internet and find this stuff? Sure. Are you ready? No. And that's one of the biggest terms for me in business, is your business grows to the extent that you do. If we're not working on the individual, if we're not working on the personal and clearing up that, then nothing else matters, because you're not going to get past that to be a better businessman, to be a better student, to be a better friend, husband, brother, whatever it is. You're not going to get better if you're not making yourself better. And that's where this growth comes from. And that's where you can step in and really steer somebody to intrinsically look at themselves, but only if they're thirsty.
Exactly. And I think that that's a really important thing too, is when we think about, I really don't want to make it seem like I'm just like shitting on life coaches, but when we think about particularly life coaches, the majority of the time, it seems like a lot of, pushy energy,
Mm.
right? Like, I'm going to push all this onto you until you realize that you're not even close to where you need to be, and that's why you need to come to me. That's the opposite of what I want, because it should just be about sharing. Like, here is my story. Here's the story of somebody that I worked with. Here's the story of where we like to go. Let me listen to your story, because you have to make sure, similar to what you said of like the thirsty comment, how
Mm-hmm.
do I identify, or we identify, that my client is thirsty and that I'm the water for them? There's plenty of different types of water in the world. And there's also different types of feelings of thirst that we have. It could be intense. It could be a little bit. It could be whatever. But how do we make sure that we're a pair? That's why we have all of those, sometimes maybe even 4 pre-conversations before we even start in our actual coaching sessions, because we need to identify if the match is right. And I think that sometimes other coaches or other different types of companies can work that connection a little bit differently. But for me, I like to take as much possible time as I can to identify that we can actually come together to partner and move forward in lockstep, compared to you following me or me pushing you.
Well, the important thing about that is a relationship. That's exactly the point. This is a relationship. This is
Yeah, 100%.
not just like, okay, do this, do that. This isn't your
Hmm.
like 1980s football coach who tells you to like lift weights, run fast. Like, this is a
Yep.
relationship. Like, you spend a lot of time with this person and you really get to know each other on a very personal, very deep level.
Hmm.
And that's the only way that trust is built for change to happen.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I keep saying this, but you're hitting the nail on the head. It's trust. It's pure trust between coach and client. And I really, if one of your listeners comes up with a different name besides coach, I will listen all ears, because I just don't like the term that much.
Just tell them I'm your Cody.
Cody, partner, but partner has a different connotation, so I probably can't use that. It's the like, what I love more than anything is the flourishing of the relationship to help somebody with their development, or their growth, which I cloak in that word development, of personal development, because personal development also can mean professional development. It also can be relational development between you and somebody else. And that's why I kind of use the overarching term of personal, as well as the overarching term of growth, um, or of development, because at the end of the day, we're trying to work together to holistically look at you as a person to see where you might need the help today. And I think that is another important point, because some of my clients have asked, like, does this fit within your curriculum? And I think I have a need to tell you, as well as your listeners, as well as anybody else who might be listening to this, is that when I think of a curriculum, I think of like borders and boundaries, and we have to do this. We have to follow this thing to get there.
Mhm.
And in reality, every single conversation is going to have to be its own unique curriculum. It's going to start in similar ways, right?
For
Like, we'll
sure.
talk about like, how are you doing, what's going on, what's top of mind. Then we'll talk about what would you like to work on. And it could be a theme, like the theme, a couple of past clients of mine have talked about, that feeling of loneliness, or potentially the feeling of, I want my team to work harder, which we can kind of dissect and dive right into what that might mean. But it really starts with identifying that each conversation that we have is going to be unique, and I'm going to do my best to tie them all together so that we can kind of have the list of development at the end. But there are things that will naturally come up. Like, if you've ever been to a therapist, your therapist doesn't tell you, we're not going to talk about that today. We're actually going to talk about this. Some therapists will do that. Actually, I've had that happen to me, but I really want to talk about what's top of mind, and then also bring those past conversations back in to say, oh, well, you felt like that last week. What was successful about what you might have done? Well, what's held you from doing that this week? Oh, that. okay, well, how would you like to implement some of those things that were successful into the next following week, right? And kind of weaving them all in and out instead of putting these confines up of what development has to be by following a curriculum. We're going to take it on an ad hoc, as needed basis to really identify your needs and give you what you need to move forward in the best possible
Well,
manner.
it's making sure that what makes you successful is repeatable.
100%. Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that repeatability, but that repeatability is also like unique. Like we have to be in tune to that, right? Like as soon as we start saying like I can only do this thing, then that kind of doesn't work well in my brain, and hopefully I can explain to you that it might not work well for you.
It's a scaffolding technique, right? Where like
Mhm.
this works, so I do more of this and less of that, and then you find your way. And then that, especially in the business side, but like on the personal side, a lot of what I think you're saying too is you teach people how to treat you. And that starts with teaching yourself how to treat yourself. And it's having that self-image and who you are and learning who you are and being comfortable with yourself. And that goes back to communication. I have to communicate with myself and be honest with myself. And damn it, if that isn't the hardest thing you could possibly do.
Always. I mean, yeah, once you can break that, it's something that we're also all working on. I would, be completely leading you on to say that if I wasn't consistently talking to myself in a way that might not be the greatest, but hopefully I can identify a better way on how to do it. The identifying that we could be nicer to ourselves, we could speak a little bit better to ourselves, maybe not even doing it, right? Maybe not even getting upset that you're not doing it, but just recognizing like, ooh, I could be nicer there, right? Or for example, when I was laid off and starting this business, when I
I was
was
so happy for you.
but like I was mean to myself.
You told me I got laid off at my first thing. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean,
Like now you have no excuses. Go do your thing.
exactly. Like, but that was hard. That was super hard for me. Like
It was
telling people when they ask me, if I would meet somebody else new or whatever, like, oh, so what do you do? And it's like, well, I'm unemployed right now. And then my partner, she kind of like gave me an elbow and she was like, no, like you're starting your business. Like that's what you're doing. Like, you've got to talk nicer to yourself because that changes your perception in other people's eyes, right? Like if I tell you that I'm unemployed, what is your perspective compared to, what, I'm starting my own business and I'm really excited about it. Do you have it like, and then they say, oh yeah, well, what do you do? Tell me more about it.
right.
It's like, you're just, through talking through yourself in a different manner changes your perception in other people's eyes. And that's so underrated, but something that I actually learned on the lacrosse field as well.
Well, that's making you believe it first because you got to believe in yourself. I got one more question and then we can try to wrap this up.
Sure.
I'm going to go deep and we're going to go back in time.
Okay.
When is a time in your life going back where you look at it now and you're like, man, that was the moment I really needed this? And how would you, as the coach you are now, tell past Cody to deal with that issue, to move forward? And where do you think that trajectory would land you today?
That's a great question. I think it would have been in college. And the intervention, that's not the right word, but for lack of a better term, the intervention point that I wish that I would have had a personal development coach come in and talk with me was probably when I broke my foot my sophomore year, playing lacrosse in college. I felt unbelievably down, unbelievably lonely, unbelievably lost. My grades were high, oddly enough, because I had nothing else to focus on. But I wanted to go home. I stuck through it. It was a time of failure, although it wasn't really on me because it was just like I broke my foot. It just like happened. I came back, I got stronger, but if it was me going back to kind of coach and talk through myself, I would have really honed in on identifying what really means something to me. I really sometimes think of the time of playing lacrosse as a means to an end. It was great. I got a scholarship to play it. I made some great connections. I made some of my best friends. My college lacrosse coach, Randy Mearns, is, still to this day, one of my favorite people. I wouldn't have traded the time for anything. I loved it. But it also was really hard. And I wish I would have had somebody in real time coaching me through the life lessons that were happening.
I don't picture Mearnsy being the soft touch.
He was a little bit, but it's different. He definitely was. I had times where I would cry in his locker or cry in his office, and we would talk about things. And he definitely was soft touch, but I think that he was a player's coach, is what everyone would say. And I think that I really wish I would have had somebody just take a walk with me and say, like, how can we get you? This is it. How can we get you out of your head? I was a relatively high performer my freshman year. Sophomore year, I broke my foot. I never achieved a level of play on the field after coming back from that injury. And it was all because I was in my head. It was all because I didn't know how to embrace the suck of life anymore. It was all because I was like, this is, I don't know if I want to even do this. I don't even know if I want to play lacrosse. I'm just going to invest, all my time and effort into academia. I got a 3.94 or whatever the last 4 semesters of college, which is great. Got Scholar Athlete Award. I threw myself into academia, but who's to say I couldn't have thrown it into internships, or I couldn't have identified something even deeper inside me to really help the trajectory of where my life could go. It all worked out perfectly, but I think there's still remnants of lost footsteps in the path, if you will, that I still feel to this day that I'm working through, that I wish I would have had help work through.
How much of that year do you think goes back to the fact that throughout all of high school and going into college, the fact that you were very talented and a really good athlete, it was just easy for you, and now it's all of a sudden hard?
Yeah, I mean, I do. That was it, right? Like, you're so right. I didn't have everything given to me by any means. Like, I worked really hard, but the caliber is just so much. When you play Division I sports, even if it's mid-major and lower level Division I, you want to perform at the highest level. And then you realize that you have to do so much more. You've got to study more. You've got to watch film. You've got to, invest in, your stick skills. You have to be running, but not just that, because you can get so caught up in your head doing all those things. I was doing all those things. It's taking the time to identify, what do I need, and learning the skill of understanding myself off the field that would have helped me on the field, that would have helped me in, get into, business early. It would have helped me get internships, would have helped me identify my own personal development. So I could have been better, not just in academia, because I was great there, but on those other places that I really needed help with.
Having that person in your life to steer you in the right direction is important, because what you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
And if what you're focusing on is the negative, I broke my foot, I'm here, or whatever it might be, I'm lonely, I suck at my job, I wish that my team was doing better. If that's what you're focusing on, that's what's going to expand. So it's really changing your mindset and making you get out of your own way by working on it, not just pushing it to the side, but working through things and creating yourself to be a better version of you. And once you're the best version of you, you can succeed, and you're the guy to help them do that.
Yeah. Well, I would love to. That's my goal. That's
so where can we find Cody on the interwebs? How can we reach out?
Yeah. My website's just my name, codygould.com. My Instagram is cody.gould. My TikTok is cody.gould. You can reach out to me. My email is coachcodygould@gmail.com.
And that's CODYGOULD. And if you guys don't follow him on social media, his TikTok is really amazing. He has great thoughts and kind of talks and talks through things that we're all thinking but not saying, and it really makes you think and has a really good thought process there. So.
Yeah, and my TikTok's kind of all over the place in regards to thought. Like I used to run human resources, so there's some things on there. Oddly enough, just a little fun fact. So there, it does about we talk about business, we talk about personal growth, we talk about communication. There's lots of different things that we talk about. It's all intertwined. So just here to make some content that people like.
Well, give Cody a follow on the socials. Go to codygould.com. And seriously, if you are the parent of a high school student who might be a little bit lost, they may be in their own way, college student might not know what to do, or you just think that they're off, or if you're a young professional and you just think that you need a boost to get yourself to the next level, or to just feel like you have some solid footing on the level that you're at. Telling you, Cody's your guy. I've known him for a long time. He is going to put you in the right spot to succeed, and he'll be your partner, your mentor, or your coach, however you want to frame it, whatever you want to call him.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Kev.
Well, thanks for coming, and we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Sold on Drip.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Sold on Drip podcast. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. If you would like to connect, learn more about Dripping Springs, or have any questions regarding Central Texas real estate, you can find me at soldondrip.com or on Instagram at Bill Cafferetta. I hope to see you around town.